As we all know, Fluttershy's special talent is being able to communicate with animals. But is that all there is to it? What if that whole Flutterbat situation actually revealed the true nature of Fluttershy's special talent? What if Fluttershy was actually capable of doing more than communicating with animals? What if she could shapeshift? So there are two things to think about with this theory. One would be how the stare actually works. The other is, what exactly happened when Fluttershy was turned into Flutterbat?
The best theory I can come up with is that these spectral bats were a magical manifestation of the vampire bat's desire to feed. But if that's the case, where did they go? Did they dematerialize off screen, or did they fly around and eventually become true vampire bats? Or did they find another host and bond onto them? Honestly, I don't know, it wasn't explained.
Let's begin with Fluttershy's stare. At first glance, it seems that this ability is some form of hypnotism. Hypnosis, however, is more about putting the subject into some sort of trance or sleep-like state. Take note, however, of what's going on in this scene between Fluttershy and the cockatrice. The cockatrice isn't getting sleepy or being put into a trance. If anything, it appears as though he's being intimidated. The simple answer here seems to be that Fluttershy's stare is just that scary to animals. Perhaps she's emitting something from her eyes that causes fear in animals. It's also highly probable that her stare is somehow related to her cutie mark. We know that cutie marks are magical in nature based on their disappearance when T-Rex sucked magic out of ponies. Based on this, the stare could be a magical ability that's directly linked to Fluttershy's cutie mark. At first, it seems that the stare causes something to be projected out of Fluttershy and directed at her targets. Whatever this something is what induces fear in her targets. I believe, however, that it's actually the other way around. Instead of projecting something into her targets, Fluttershy is actually sucking something out of her targets. Her stare actually creates a psychic link between herself and the target, allowing her to absorb their courage? Willpower? So? The reason I believe this is because of what happened when Fluttershy was turned into Flutterbat.
Okay, so this is me, these are the bats, and this is Fluttershy doing her stare. The spell was supposed to go right onto the bats like this. But somehow the spell must have backfired. It took the vampire fruit bat's desire to be vampire fruit bats and transferred that desire into Fluttershy.
It's a little puzzling just exactly how the stare could cause such an unexpected side effect to Twilight Sparkle's spell. If, however, we consider the possibility that Fluttershy's stare was actually sucking up willpower from the bats, then the Flutterbat side effect starts to make sense. My guess is, Twilight's spell was originally supposed to take the vampire fruit bat's desire to eat apples and dump them in some sort of pocket dimension. Instead of going into the pocket dimension, however, they got sucked up by Fluttershy's stare along with the bat's willpower. The reason why I believe this is that in order to change Fluttershy back, Twilight specifically said that she had to reverse the spell. In other words, the desire to eat apples had to be taken out of Fluttershy and returned to the bats. The original method of reversing the spell probably involves taking the desires out of the pocket dimension and returning them to the bats. The desires, however, were not in the pocket dimension. They were in Fluttershy. Hence, reversing the spell involves taking the desires out of Fluttershy and returning them to the bats. As a side note, when Flutterbat used the stare on herself by staring into the mirror, she created a sort of feedback loop. It temporarily stunned her when her own willpower was sucked out, but as soon as it was returned to her, she attempted to escape. Those few seconds of having her willpower sucked out, however, was all Twilight needed to reverse the spell. So then, the reason why Fluttershy turned into Flutterbat would be because her stare sucked up the bat's desires to eat apples and store them in her cutie mark. However, if the stare really is a magical ability, it's very likely linked to her cutie mark. This is why her cutie mark changed into 3 pink bats. Now we come to the entire point of this theory, which is that, assuming this is all true, This would reveal the true nature of Fluttershy's cutie mark. She's not just a translator for animals. Her true talent is the ability to psychically link with animals and absorb small essences of their being into herself. This is the real reason why she can communicate with animals on a deeper level. She doesn't just learn the animal language, she takes in their habits, their attitudes, their feelings, and their culture and makes them her own. This is why it takes time for Fluttershy to learn the language of an animal she's not used to.
This is the first vampire fruit bat I've ever met, and, well, it might take some time for me to really understand their language.
Most likely, this ability is normally passive and does not take too much of the target's essence, making it harmless. Well, harmless until she cranks it up by using her stare. There is a term in the study of anthropology called cultural relativism. It is the idea that beliefs, values, and practices of a culture should be understood from the viewpoint of that same culture as opposed to a different one. This idea is integral in anthropological studies of other cultures. Fluttershy adopts this same idea when she interacts with animals and her ability to absorb their beliefs, values, and practices into herself. This is perhaps one of the main reasons why she's capable of befriending Discord in the first place. She knew that Discord didn't think like a pony. Discord had his own values and beliefs, and if Fluttershy was to connect with him, she would have to take the time to understand those values and beliefs. Another thing that may support this theory is Fluttershy's cutie mark itself. For a long time in mythology and folklore, butterflies were seen as a symbol of transformation and rebirth, most likely due to the metamorphosis from caterpillar to butterfly. Perhaps the reason why Fluttershy's cutie mark is depicted as 3 butterflies is because of her ability to figuratively transform herself and become more like the animals she interacts with. Out of the main 6, Fluttershy probably undergoes the most number of transformations, whether it's figuratively or actually. Perhaps this is linked to her destiny as the pony capable of changing herself in order to better understand others. It could be linked to her destiny as depicted by the 3 butterflies of transformation and rebirth. If we continue this line of thinking, perhaps this means that Fluttershy could crank up her ability to absorb animal-like behavior and features to the point where she becomes able to transform in the literal sense. Wouldn't it be fun if she suddenly gained the ability to become as strong as a bear or following a scent like a bloodhound? Perhaps her friendship with Discord will even allow her to tap into some of that chaos magic one day. So, what do you think? Could Fluttershy's stare actually be her sucking up willpower? Could this be the real reason why she ended up transforming into Flutterbat? Could the ability to absorb the values and beliefs of animals be the true nature of her cutie mark? Leave your comments below and let me know. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button while you're at it. Hypnosis, however, is more about putting the subject into some sort of trance or putting the subject into some sort of trance or sleep-like state.